Crisis on Infinite Earths has just ended, and one pretty big thing they did in this crossover is actually add a lot more DC characters than any other previous crossover. A lot of characters who were either important to the original Crisis storyline, or are just added for the sake of being added, and with a couple of those characters, and maybe some sort of concepts, there are some spin-off shows that I do think have the potential to be shows going forward, whether that be on the CW, HBO Max, DC Universe, or really anything else. It doesn't matter, but I do think that these are shows that have the possibility of existing, or at least are things that I really want to see spin off from the crossover. This is only counting things from the crossover, not things that have the potential to be after the crossover or things that are before, just things that are from Crisis on Infinite Earths. With that in mind, let's begin with number 5.
Oh, nice.
So the Justice League TV show, or the Super Friends TV show, whichever one you want to call it, is only at number 5, even though it's something I really want to see, because it's not possible. DC and Warner Brothers would never allow them to do a Justice League TV show, but also if they do this, and have this TV show go the year round, they would have to cancel every other show in the Arrowverse: The Flash, Supergirl, Legends of Tomorrow, Batwoman, Superman and Lois, even probably Green Arrow and the Canaries. Every single show that would have a character in this Justice League TV show would all have to be canceled, which is why they would never do that. They would make a lot less money off of this one TV show, but it is still something I would want to see, because it's the Justice League. We've literally never gotten a Justice League live-action TV show, and even though this is a very unconventional Justice League, with White Canary specifically, but also Batwoman and the founding members of Black Lightning and Supergirl, it's a little bit different. It's very different, actually, from what the Justice League typically looks like, or even the Super Friends, but I think these are characters that work really well off each other. Seeing them together in the end of Part 5 was a lot of fun and really, really cool. And while this is practically impossible, and that's why it's at number 5, I do really want to see a Justice League TV show on Earth Prime in the Arrowverse. Right after being introduced to the Justice League of Earth Prime, we were also introduced to Gleek, who had this voice cameo, also had some sort of, he escaped from his cage scenario. It does seem like on Earth Prime, at the Hall of Justice, for some reason they had this blue monkey in a cage, but Gleek in the comics, and actually originally in the Super Friends TV show, was the pet monkey of the Wonder Twins, this twin duo of superheroes who are either able to turn into water, which is the male one, or turn into animals, which is the female one, when they touch their hands and say Wonder Twins power activate. It's pretty, it's cheesy, it is a little bit ridiculous, but it also can be pretty interesting for its own TV show, because while I'm not necessarily a fan of the Wonder Twins, I'm not saying that I don't like them, it's just that I'm not exactly a fan, I do think that maybe they could get their own CW, or maybe HBO Max or DC Universe TV show that I think could be interesting. And also I think that there's no way they're just going to introduce Gleek, have him appear in a cameo, and for that to not lead into anything. They're not going to introduce Gleek, and for that to not lead into the Wonder Twins appearing. And honestly, there's really no room for them on any TV show. Superman and Lois and then Green Arrow and the Canaries are new. They're not just going to introduce these new Wonder Twin characters into those TV shows. The Flash is dealing with the fact that he's not going to die in the future, and the black hole thing, and there's really no room for them. And Batwoman, that just doesn't fit. So really the only one that's left is Legends of Tomorrow, which honestly, yes, the Wonder Twins would fit into all of that with the ridiculousness of that show. However, even though the show really desperately needs more DC characters, it just, I think, wouldn't work, because they have such a small budget on that show, and they rarely ever use the superpower, so what would be the point? They certainly can't do the animal powers of Janya, the female Wonder Twin, so honestly, I think that out of all the options, I would prefer for them to get their own TV show if they're going to appear at all. Whether that be on the CW, where even in its new show, they probably couldn't really do the animal powers of Janya very much, or on DC Universe, or on HBO Max. Honestly, I don't really care. I just think that the Wonder Twins could be a cool TV show that we see going forward, and they introduced Gleek. There's no way that's not going to lead into the Wonder Twins introduction. And also, I gotta say, it's higher than Justice League because it's actually possible, while the Justice League absolutely isn't.
Only you can light the spark, Oliver. It is your destiny.
What is my destiny?
To save everyone. Otherwise, all universes, all the people you love, will perish.
So in Crisis on Infinite Earths, the Spectre played a very large role in the original Crisis in the comics, but also in this crossover, bigger than I could have ever expected, as well Jim Corrigan didn't really have very much screen time, only appearing in I think it was like 2 scenes total. He definitely had a very large role as he reverted his powers, so he gave his powers to Oliver Queen. Oliver used these powers to defeat the Anti-Monitor and rebirth the multiverse, creating the new multiverse and Earth Prime, but also in so doing, Oliver died. Right now, since Jim Corrigan gave his powers to Oliver and Oliver died, it does seem like they are probably both dead, and I think there's no Spectre in the multiverse, and I think they really could do something with this concept and with this character. One of 3 options is the powers of the Spectre reverted back to Jim Corrigan, and he is still alive, which honestly, I think would probably be the best option. I really like Stephen Lobo in the role, and I would really like to see more of the character going forward. Another option is that Oliver didn't die, which isn't really much of an option, just like Super Friends or the Justice League TV show. It's something that I would like to see, but it's something that is absolutely impossible since Stephen Amell is going to be on other shows and he did leave the Arrowverse. A third option, however, is that the powers go to another Spectre, maybe somebody who was the Spectre in the comics, Crispus Allen. In the comics, Crispus Allen was a Metropolis PD officer who was transferred to Gotham, who had some affiliation with Jim Corrigan, but after he died and Jim Corrigan wasn't the Spectre anymore, he became the Spectre, and I do think that's something they could possibly do, since Jim Corrigan does seem like he's dead, Oliver Queen is certainly dead, and they really should do something with the Spectre superhero concept, or the Spectre character. I think probably the best option, probably the only option at this point, other than saying that Jim Corrigan is still alive, is bringing in this new Spectre, Crispus Allen. It would mean that one of or 2 of the main characters of our Arrowverse TV shows have the same last name, Crispus Allen and Barry Allen, but honestly, who cares? I mean, that doesn't really matter at all, so I do think that the Spectre is a TV show I would really want to see, and I don't think it should be on the CW. I don't think the CW would do well with that, but I do think it should be on either DC Universe or, more likely, and because it could be given a very high budget, HBO Max.
An infinite number will be lost if you go through with it. It's not worth it.
You just show up here as if by magic and demand belief.
The fact I'm here at all should be enough to convince you.
So Arrow Season 3 introduced Ray Palmer as the Atom, and it did seem like they were setting him up for his own spin-off show. However, instead of doing an Atom show, they opted to make this superhero team-up show with superheroes and also supervillains from Arrow and the Flash. This became Legends of Tomorrow, which is a fun show with, I think, one great season, which is Season 2, but one thing they never got right at all was the use of the Atom. Brandon Routh is good in the role, but I really don't like his characterization on the show, especially compared to Arrow Season 3, where he was, I think, a lot more likable, a lot more intelligent, and also he had a personality, or at least his personality wasn't incredibly exaggerated, and also he had a motivation, and the entire thing with his fiance being killed by a Miracruiter soldier that was completely abandoned going into Legends of Tomorrow. But one thing they really never got right was his abilities, his shrinking abilities, or even his growth abilities, which he used one time during Season 1. They never got those abilities right because they had all of these other superheroes that had to do, and they didn't really have a very high budget, with every season having a smaller budget than the last one, which it does seem like that's why Ray Palmer is actually leaving the show, or Brandon Routh is leaving the show, because they just don't have the budget for that character, or maybe they don't have the budget for that actor. Honestly, I don't know, but I do think they wasted the Atom, or the concept of the Atom and the shrinking ability so much in the Arrowverse. However, they have this new Atom, Ryan Choi, and this would be the perfect opportunity to make an Atom TV show that is more focused on his abilities and could be a better use of the Atom. So I'll be honest, I thought Ryan Choi was weirdly used in Crisis on Infinite Earths. Like, he never became the Atom, which was weird. I honestly thought that, like, in between the gap between when they got to the Vanishing Point and then Part 4, he could have built the Atom suit there and become the Atom there. I don't understand why they didn't do that, and I don't understand why he was a Paragon. He really didn't do anything whatsoever as a Paragon, and in the end, when he was fighting the Shadow Demons, he was just punching them. I do get that he did shrink the Anti-Monitor forever, but that's something Ray Palmer could have easily done himself. So all in all, I don't think Ryan Choi fit into the Crisis. However, I did really like the character. I think that the actor did a good job in the role. I think he's very likable, and honestly, I think he could be a very good fit for his own TV show. A TV show that would focus on Ryan Choi becoming the Atom, succeeding his old idol Ray Palmer as the character, and a show that focuses a lot more on his shrinking ability than the previous Atom. And also I think that this version of the Atom could be an Atom who can't fly, can't shoot blasters, his only ability is shrinking, which I think is a lot more interesting for the character than what the other Atom had, which is more of an Iron Man suit than anything, and I do think this could really work. Another thing I think they should do is use certain characters and villains from the Arrowverse that they had in the old multiverse, villains like Kronos, villains like the Bug-Eyed Bandit, who are Atom villains, or like Dwarf Star, 3 Atom villains, the only 3 Atom villains really, who were used poorly. All 3 of them were used poorly in the Arrowverse, and I think they should retcon those villains and use them for this TV show instead. I think this could be a lot better than Ryan Choi being used on Legends of Tomorrow, where he would never use his abilities or powers whatsoever, and I think this is honestly a TV show I would want to see. I think the CW can do it, but again, I would always prefer for HBO Max or DC Universe to do it because they do have bigger budgets, at least for HBO Max.
Because, Lois, even in the darkest times, hope cuts through. Hope is the light that lifts us out of darkness. I must go back.
So back in 2006, when Brandon Routh was cast as Clark Kent, I don't really know what the reactions to that were, but people did not like the movie he was in, Superman Returns. It wasn't well received, and it didn't make any money, and that basically destroyed Brandon Routh's career, and he didn't really do anything again until he was cast on Arrow as Ray Palmer, and then he was one of the main characters on Legends of Tomorrow. But then after, 13 years of not playing the character at all, he was brought back as Clark Kent, aka Superman, in Crisis on Infinite Earths Part 2 as well as Part 3, and also a cameo in Part 5, and people absolutely loved him. He just exuded Superman. I thought Tyler Hoechlin was good, but next to Brandon Routh, just standing next to Brandon Routh, it's clear which one of them is really Superman, and that's the Brandon Routh version. His costume is awesome, even like at the end when they replace the Kingdom Come Black with the typical yellow. It's such a great costume, and Brandon Routh is perfect as Clark Kent. This is something that a lot of people want to see, but it does seem like this version of Clark Kent deserves more stories to be told in the form of a spin-off show. Now, obviously, this is something that would be complicated since the CW can't really do it. They have their own TV show, Superman and Lois, that's coming up, which I am very excited for, and I do think that that could be a very good TV show, but there's no way they're going to do 2 Superman shows with 2 different actors. Instead, I think that what people really want to see is not really a spin-off show, maybe a movie or something like that, but I think what would be really good is a mini-series of Brandon Routh as Clark Kent, aka Superman, a mini-series that I think would be best on HBO Max. Honestly, all of these shows would be best on HBO Max because HBO Max has a huge budget, as we have heard from the Green Lantern TV show specifically. Some of them can be done on the CW, like Ryan Choi TV show or the Wonder Twins, but I think this version of Superman definitely that can't really work on the CW, and I think should have an HBO Max miniseries just to cap off this version of Superman. I think that's something that a lot of people really want to see, and that's something that I think is possible since Brandon Routh just left the show, just left Legends of Tomorrow, I think for budgetary reasons, and it doesn't seem like he's doing anything at this point, but also the reception to this version of Superman in Crisis has been incredibly positive. It's something that maybe they would want to cash in on or maybe do something with, so I do think this is a show that can happen, and it's a show that should happen. So anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below about my top 5 spin-off shows from Crisis on Infinite Earths. Let me know your thoughts, and if you like this video, make sure to leave a like, share, and subscribe, and thanks for watching.